Okay, that was quicker than I expected. Thank you.
Me too.
I want to follow up on the questions from previous rounds of estimates on the immigration detention fraud issue, or the fraud that was conducted from immigration detention centres of Medicare. Let's let the relevant officials come forward. So in Quan responses in relation to this fraud, which last time we had an update, I understand, was about $8 million, you said that 3 individuals have been charged with offences. Are there any updates on that?
Yes, Senator, I'll start and then
Thank you.
to Mr Timpson if he wants to add anything further. So in relation to that, there was 3 persons of interest who were arrested at the time of the at the search warrant execution, and there's been 4 briefs of evidence that have been accepted, or briefs of evidence in relation to 4 persons of interest accepted by the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions. But do you want to discuss what we've seen in terms of activity?
Can I just clarify in relation to that statement? 3 people have been charged and 4 briefs of evidence. Is that for additional people, or those 3 people and 1 other person, or?
Peter Timpson, General Manager, Fraud Control Investigations Division. Yes, Senator, that's a 4th person, not person in the detention centre.
Right.
I would like to also say it is an ongoing investigation.
I understand. Yep, and I understand it will constrain your responses to some degree, and I won't press you to say things that are prejudicial. So 3 individuals have been charged, but there's a brief of evidence about a 4th person who's not been charged, or that person has also been charged but just isn't in an immigration detention centre.
That has been referred to CDPP for prosecution.
Yep.
They're not in detention.
But not yet charged?
No.
Right, okay.
Just to be clear, Senator, we prepare briefs of evidence for the CDPP. They hold the delegation as to whether or not to prosecute on behalf of the Commonwealth.
Yes, understood. So those 3 individuals who have been charged, are they just remaining in immigration detention, or have they been incarcerated in the prison system? What is their status?
My understanding is they've been released on bail and being given visas as persons prosecuted before, or alleged prosecutions before the court.
Wait, so they're out of immigration detention after allegedly committing an $8 million Medicare fraud?
That's a matter for the Department of Home Affairs, Senator.
I'm not suggesting you're responsible, but if you're aware of the facts, they're important. So they commit alleged fraud in immigration detention, and then they're released on bail on visas?
That's correct.
That seems, again, not your area of responsibility, but surprising. Have you...
Can I just say they're on bail conditions as well?
Sure, one would hope. One would hope. In Victoria, not very strict, generally speaking, but not your problem. Have you identified any other potential instances of fraud in the Melbourne Immigration Detention Centre?
As we mentioned, Senator, the investigation's ongoing, so...
yeah, I'm talking about other instances, not necessarily these people, but, has this prompted an investigation into other frauds from immigration detention?
I'd just like to say there are other investigations underway. Whether or not they're linked to the detention centre or people in there, I prefer not to comment on that.
Okay, all right, I understand. So there was a report in the Herald Sun by Mark Butler on the 2nd of October last year, and it had a kind of passing reference in the story about an apparent Services Australia inquiry into a, quote, alleged corruption of a government official, and your agency commented in that article, investigations into the nature and extent of the alleged offending remain active. It would not be appropriate to comment on ongoing investigations. Are you able to confirm or not whether a Commonwealth official is one of those 4 people that a brief of evidence has been provided for?
That's in relation to a charge where the allegation is being a corrupt Commonwealth official, where someone is pretending to be a Commonwealth official when they're not a Commonwealth official.
Not an actual Commonwealth official.
Someone pretending to be one of us.
Understood.
So...
Right. So you have no concerns that any Commonwealth official was a party to this fraud?
We also conduct internal investigations in the agency,
course.
and we wouldn't comment on that if that was an active investigation.
Sure, but in relation to this particular instance, I took it from your answer that the issue here is someone impersonating a government official, not a government official participating in the fraud.
Senator, separate questions. That answer, whether or not that's linked to anything internally, that would still be subject to investigations.
Right, so there's possible link to an internal issue in this instance?
Not that I'm aware, but we don't.
Right.
We don't say that that's not the case.
Okay. So, I do understand that. So there would be no need at this stage for a referral to the NAC, for example, over corruption.
Oh, if we identified something, we'd let them know, in according with NAC Act 2022.
Yep. Tell me a bit more about your remediation of the potential vulnerability that was exploited here, allegedly.
We work with the Department of Health with notifying the service providers and also working with those that have been affected by this matter, noting it's an ongoing investigation.
But in terms of changes to your systems to prevent this from happening again?
Taking steps, Senator, to, with our processes internally and with communicating with our staff, what this is in instance, and we see this with lots of the fraud attempts where people will contact the agency, obviously attempting to impersonate somebody else in order to access a payment. And so reinforcing those processes around authenticating people. And we also ensure that we communicate with customers, or in this case providers, about the need to have strong authentications in place and to be careful about people contacting them, attempting to impersonate our staff, which is the matter that Mr Timpson referred to.
It was ultimately end users that were taken advantage of. I mean, it was a Commonwealth that was defrauded, but it was end users who were effectively the victim in that sense, that they were
victim
targeted.
of the identity fraud.
Yeah.
That's right, and that's quite common, where people will use scam activity or impersonation activity to attempt to harvest your credentials or personally identifiable information, so that can be used to contact us to impersonate you.
Is the estimate of the losses from this particular fraud still at $8 million?
That's correct, Senator.
Yep. So you're reasonably confident that the full extent of it has been captured? It's not an ongoing issue?
There's no further offending in relation to this investigation.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Chair, do you need to rotate the call, or am I your last customer?
You are the last customer.
Okay.
If you have
in that
anything
instance,
further.